we need to be more engaged in critical thinking, right? So we need to become more of a conscious person, and blame it on the media, blame it on our fast-paced lives, blame it on not having enough time to sit in quietness and reflect. But we're all on autopilot. Like, we don't think about things. And this is as, like, I think about it from so much that's in our system, like, you know, like HelloFresh and the good foods, where you're not even now thinking about how to put stuff together. It's just given to you. It's like, okay, here, follow the instructions. I get there's a convenience factor to it, but I also then think, what is the detriment to it? Am I not learning anymore? And I think you have to come to it very critically and say, I am using these things to allow myself to grow more, as opposed to just have me coast through life and just be on autopilot all the time.
It's almost like as children, when, you know, you're given these, like, what was it called? It was like the math questions where you have to just like do questions.
Mental math.
Yeah, for 30 seconds and like start to challenge your mind. We don't do that as adults. And I feel like we maybe more have to be looking at things and being able to recognize, you know, which of these, what here does not fit, what here sounds like a problem, what's happening here that doesn't actually look like the world that we're seeing. I mean, in terms of media, like, what am I looking at right now, and what's wrong with this picture, and what are they trying to skew me to, and what biases are they, you know, lending themselves to? Like, that's kind of the lens we have to start looking at things now, and be challenging your mind, because as you get older, you just stop doing that. Now it's just sort of, you're getting fed information, exactly like you said, Yad.
I love that you guys are talking about this so much, because it makes me think again about critical thinking. And as an educator, I love to see, you know, what are we actually putting out there in terms of our textbooks and our knowledge, right? As educators, as influencers, as policymakers, we have to be very, very mindful of the information that we're putting out there. I remember reading a post that my friend wrote, took a picture of, and she took a picture of a textbook, a children's textbook, that was talking about how the indigenous people, when the settlers came, the indigenous people gave them the land freely.
Yeah.
And I wanted to vomit after reading that, because clearly that is misinformation, right? Because we know what happened. If you truly educate yourself about the history of the indigenous people, what happened when the settlers came, they did not give up their land in the way that they're trying to portray it in that textbook. So if we are allowing children to take in this information without critically thinking about it, asking questions about it, or not even giving them the right information, then that's a problem. So that's a part of how we need to shift into this growth mindset, ask questions, become more aware. This is, you know, questioning the textbooks, not putting them out there, educating about real historical facts. I think that's really, really, really important. That I think we've been skimming over quite a bit.
Race is in every facet of our society. So it really impacts how you experience life on a daily basis. But you can sort of see that there's a lot, right? There's the understanding of sort of race and how it's being portrayed through history. But then I think also mental health and the disparities there. And I think even just sort of looking at employment, homes, housing, and sort of really getting everyone to really understand that even these policies that come into play because people are educating themselves, or they're trying to, it doesn't always actually come out in the way that it was originally intended. And so this comes back to our systemic issues. So these history books, there's a reason they're written this way. And so when we, you know, I think about the Federal Drug Treatment Court program, and it was a place, it was created to alleviate a lot of injustices against Blacks and Indigenous people. But if we're raising children, and I think this is where a lot of my colleagues have said, is I've raised my child to be race neutral. A lot of our government policies are race neutral. I don't see color, you're not supposed to see color. And I think this is where our policies absolutely have to be race specific now. Mm-hmm. They can't be colorblind. Because then these colorblind policies are really just an extension of that discomfort that we have, right? And so the Federal Drug Treatment Court, it was in for Black and Indigenous people, but when we look at the data around it, the the biggest benefactors of that program are white males over the age of 30, right? So the program was originally intended for one thing, but it's never really transpired into that. And I think that's where, if we continue to have race blind or race neutral policies or teachings, then whether it's from children's and adults in different areas, then I think we're always going to have to, then it's exhausting to catch people up to that gap that's there, right? A point about becoming informed now and doing more than sort of, I'll vote because I vote Liberal, or I'll vote because I vote NDP, and that's all I've known to vote, right? Because how much, do we write to our MPs? Are we asking for change? Are we getting petitions? Are we joining, that sort of collective? And I think that's the collective mindset in terms of growth that has to happen. But we can only really do that if we start becoming informed, whether on individual levels, and then as well as what is happening systemically, as well as lived experiences, and taking a moment to actively listen. Because what I've noticed is a lot of people are generalizing or they're minimizing. So it's, yeah, but that doesn't happen here, right? Mm-hmm. Or that doesn't happen all that often. It was a one-off. Or, if that person had just done this, this, and this, then this wouldn't have happened. And so I think there's a lot of those types of biases or sort of ways of explaining things that individually we have to deal with, but collectively we have to deal with. And that's where we have to inform our leaders or MPs and ask and make them accountable. They have to respond if you write to them. So really knowing that we can use that voice, because I can be very transparent right now and say, I was one of the people that says, I don't get involved in politics because it's all, it's all rigged. There's nothing I can do about it. So it was a very helpless way of coming, and it was normalized in my mind. That's just the way that it is, and there's nothing I'm going to be able to do about it. So I think that's just another kind of layer that we can kind of delve into too.